This is a true story. It's a story of a city celebrating, a world at war, and a virus that would change everything. Philadelphia, 1918. The Great War was ending, and the streets throbbed with victory parades. But a darkness lurked in the air, a silent predator disguised as a common cold. They called it the Spanish flu. It started subtly, a cough here, a fever there. But this was no ordinary flu, it was a monster in disguise. It ravaged the city with brutal speed. Hospitals overflowed, doctors and nurses worked around the clock, their faces etched with fatigue and fear. Imagine a city transformed into a giant sick room, the air thick with the stench of disinfectant and despair. The streets, once bustling with life, now eerily silent, save for the rumble of death carts. People were dying faster than they could be buried. Mass graves became a grim necessity. The Spanish flu didn't discriminate. It struck young and old, rich and poor. It was a stark reminder of our vulnerability, a force of nature unleashed upon an unsuspecting world. And just as quickly as it arrived, it vanished, leaving behind a trail of unimaginable loss and a world forever changed. London, December 1952. A city renowned for its fog found itself engulfed in something far more sinister. They called it the Great Smog. It was a toxic cocktail of fog, smoke, and industrial pollutants, a suffocating blanket that descended upon the city, turning day into night. Imagine the air, thick and heavy, scratching at your throat with every breath. Visibility was reduced to a few feet. People stumbled around blindly, their coughs echoing through the eerie silence. It was a scene straight out of a dystopian nightmare. The smog was a silent killer. It seeped into homes, shops, and theaters, leaving no one untouched. Thousands suffered respiratory problems. The elderly and those with pre-existing conditions were hit the hardest. The death toll soared, a grim testament to the deadly consequences of unchecked industrialization. The Great Smog was a wake-up call, a stark reminder of the delicate balance between progress and preservation. It forced the world to confront the consequences of its actions, and sparked a global movement for cleaner air. Imagine ancient Athens, the cradle of democracy and philosophy, brought to its knees by an unseen enemy. The year was 430 BC. The Peloponnesian War raged, but a far more insidious foe lurked within the city walls: the plague. No one knew what it was, this swift and merciless killer. It arrived with a vengeance, sweeping through the crowded city with terrifying speed. Fever, chills, vomiting, and eventually, a gruesome death. Panic gripped the city. Temples overflowed with desperate pleas for divine intervention. The sick were abandoned, left to die alone in the streets. The stench of decay hung heavy in the air. The plague raged for 3 long years, claiming the lives of an estimated third of Athens' population. Among its victims was the great Athenian statesman Pericles. The city, once a beacon of civilization, was left a shadow of its former self. New York City, 1776. The American Revolution was in full swing, but a more silent and insidious enemy threatened to cripple the nascent nation. Smallpox, a disease as old as civilization itself, had arrived on the shores of the New World. Imagine a city already on edge, grappling with the uncertainty of war, now facing a new terror. Smallpox spread like wildfire, leaving its victims disfigured and often dead. Fear gripped the city. People avoided contact with each other, terrified of the telltale pustules. The Continental Army, already stretched thin, faced a new enemy. General George Washington, aware of the devastating potential of smallpox, made a bold decision. He ordered the inoculation of the entire Continental Army, a controversial procedure at the time. Washington's gamble paid off. Although some soldiers died from the inoculation itself, the impact of smallpox on the army was significantly reduced. The tide of the war turned and a new nation was born, forever marked by the invisible terror of smallpox. Section 5. A Dance with Death, Typhoid Fever in Victorian London, 1854. London, 1854. The heart of the British Empire, a city pulsating with life, commerce, and a dark secret lurking beneath its polished facade. Typhoid fever, a disease that thrived in filth and poverty, had taken root in the overcrowded slums of London. Imagine a city of stark contrasts where opulent mansions cast long shadows over squalid slums. The air, thick with coal smoke and the stench of sewage, provided the perfect breeding ground for disease. And it was in the heart of Soho, on Broad Street, that the invisible enemy struck. People started falling ill with alarming speed. High fever, delirium, and often death followed. Panic spread through the narrow, winding streets. Theories abounded, but the true culprit remained a mystery. Enter John Snow, a physician with a radical theory. He believed the disease wasn't spread by bad air but by contaminated water. His meticulous investigation, tracing the outbreak to a single water pump on Broad Street, would change the course of public health forever. Section 6. The Bite of 1,000 Mosquitoes, Yellow Fever in New Orleans, 1878. New Orleans, 1878. A city pulsating with life, music, and the intoxicating aroma of Creole cuisine. But beneath the surface, a silent killer lurked, carried on the wings of mosquitoes. It was yellow fever, and it was about to unleash its fury. As temperatures soared, so did the number of victims. Panic gripped the city as the death toll mounted. Though the fever subsided, it left behind a city forever marked by its encounter with the deadly mosquito. Section 7. The Scourge of the Trenches, Trench Foot in World War I. The trenches of World War I, a nightmarish landscape of mud, blood, and relentless shelling. Trench foot, a debilitating and often deadly condition, became the scourge of the trenches. Imagine standing for hours, even days, in a waterlogged trench. It quickly escalated to agonizing pain, swelling, and discoloration. Many lost their feet, their dreams, their lives, not to enemy fire, but to this silent and insidious enemy. The Bhopal gas tragedy, 1984, December 3, 1984. A night that turned a bustling city into a gas chamber. The Union Carbide plant released a deadly cloud of toxic gas. Imagine waking to a burning sensation in your lungs, panic in the streets, people gasping for breath. The gas spread like an invisible shroud. Thousands died within hours. The true horror unfolded in the days and years that followed. Birth defects and chronic illnesses plague survivors. A chilling example of corporate negligence, a scar on the conscience of humanity. Section 9. The Invisible Enemy, HIV/AIDS in San Francisco, 1980s. San Francisco, the 1980s. A city known for its vibrant culture, its openness, and its embrace of diversity. But a new and terrifying enemy had emerged. One that struck silently and without prejudice. HIV/AIDS, a mysterious and deadly disease, was about to cast a long shadow over the city by the bay. Imagine a community, a city, a nation grappling with an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't understand. A disease that seemed to target primarily gay men, fueling fear, prejudice, and discrimination. Fear and misinformation spread faster than the virus itself. People were afraid to touch, afraid to love, afraid to even speak the name of the disease. But amidst the fear and uncertainty, a powerful movement emerged, one that demanded recognition, research, and a cure. The AIDS epidemic in San Francisco and beyond highlighted the devastating impact of stigma and discrimination. It also showcased the power of community, activism, and the unyielding human spirit in the face of adversity. Section 10. The Chernobyl Ghost Town. The Chernobyl Disaster, 1986. Chernobyl, Ukraine. April 26, 1986. A date that sent chills down the spines of people around the world. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant, a testament to human ambition, became a symbol of hubris and the unimaginable consequences of a nuclear disaster. Imagine a city, Pripyat, home to the families of Chernobyl's workers, transformed into a ghost town overnight. The invisible enemy, radiation, forced a mass evacuation, leaving behind empty streets, abandoned homes, and a haunting silence. The invisible killer left its mark on everything it touched. Forests turned a sickly ginger brown. Animals bore the brunt of genetic mutations. And the human toll, though difficult to quantify, was devastating. Chernobyl stands as a stark reminder of the devastating and long-lasting effects of nuclear disasters. It serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of nuclear safety, the need for transparency, and the global responsibility to prevent such tragedies from ever happening again. Section 11, A World on Edge, the COVID-19 Pandemic 2020 to present, the year 2020. A new decade dawns, filled with promise and anticipation. But a new enemy, invisible and highly contagious, emerges from the shadows. COVID-19, a novel coronavirus, spreads rapidly across the globe, throwing the world into chaos and uncertainty. Imagine a world holding its breath, borders closing, cities locking down, and life as we knew it grinding to a halt. The fear is palpable, the uncertainty overwhelming. The pandemic exposed the fragility of our interconnected world, highlighting the importance of global cooperation, scientific research, and public health infrastructure. It also revealed the resilience of the human spirit, the power of community, and the unwavering dedication of healthcare professionals on the front lines. The COVID-19 pandemic is a defining moment in human history. It has challenged our assumptions, tested our limits, and forced us to confront our vulnerabilities. As we navigate this uncharted territory, one thing is certain: the world will never be the same.